I never knew my mom. She died during childbirth, lived long enough to hold me in her arms and say, "Sam." Dad said the last moment of her life was the happiest one, so at least she went out on a high. Speaking of highs, Dad was a drug addict, so I only spent a few months with him before they shipped me out to foster homes. The first people who had me were arrested for kidnapping a child in the 70s, and I was forwarded to an elderly couple before I turned 1. I'm sure they were the best parents I ever had, but they didn't last long. Enid passed away in her sleep when I was 18 months, and Rex died of a broken heart soon after. I was sent to an upper-class couple after that and lived with Carlos and Anastasia for the next 8 years. Anastasia hated me from the get-go because Spot, her bunny rabbit, died of shock the day I arrived. It's hardly a toddler's fault that rabbits have zero constitution, but all the same, I was scorned by her for half my childhood. If I had to describe Anastasia's parenting style, I would probably say hands off. Technically, I was raised by Nintendo. When I was 7, I topped the state in The Legend of Zelda. Carlos was an even worse parent than the Game Boy. Once a week, he'd come check if I died from malnutrition and just stand awkwardly in the doorway. Then he'd back away like I was some old acquaintance he didn't want to talk to. Before I turned 10, my dad convinced the courts he was off drugs and got custody of me. He was over the moon. I was put on a train to Arcadia Station, and Dad met me there with a Labrador puppy he named Lucky. Lucky was so excited to meet his new best friend that he leapt right on top of me as I arrived. Except I was still on a moving train, and the poor thing got minced. It was a fairly mixed reunion. A few days after I moved into Dad's pokey flat, he started coughing. It quickly grew worse and worse until his entire breathing cycle consisted of a gasp in and a choke out. Cancer got him when I was 10 years and 10 days. Off I went to another foster home. After less than 6 months, my 2 dads, Charles and Charlie, were killed in an accident on the motorway. When my next foster mom died of a stroke at 27, I knew something was wrong with me. I relocated again and went to see a priest. "Father, I think I'm possessed by the devil. A lot of people around me have gone to heaven. My mom, my dad, the Charleses, the old couple, even Lucky and Spot. I'm not very good at math, but this many deaths seems very improbable. How am I supposed to live if everyone around me goes to heaven, Father? Father? Hello?" The next guy I moved in with is still alive today. He worked at a warehouse and was terribly fond of marijuana, smoking it on a daily basis when he got home at 4 a.m. I don't know how he was legally entitled to adopt, but I suspect he hired someone from Craigslist.com to be his de facto partner during interviews. Steve-O and I didn't have much to do with each other, but he was a decent enough parent who got me through school and into my own apartment. I moved in with 2 nerds I met through World of Warcraft, but I was the only one who survived the fire. By the time I was living alone and working from home as a programmer, I was over it. What the hell was wrong with me? What evil spirit did I piss off to end up as a town death magnet? At 19, I tried to kill myself. I nailed a sturdy hook into the rafters and slung a rope over it. Looked up how to make a noose on the internet and slipped it over my neck. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and kicked out the chair from beneath me. Then, the rafters swung down in an arc, sending Bowser Jr. out the window. "Fuck this," I said, and I leapt out after him. I fell 4 stories and landed on Mrs. Bellevue. Staggered onto the road, and the car that swerved to miss me finished the old dear off. My guilt at being the only one able to stay alive for more than 5 minutes tripled, and I tried everything I could to end myself. Did you know if you put a gun right next to your head and pull the trigger, it's still possible to, bang, hit the wrong person? I jumped off a cliff, but a gust of wind blew me into a tree growing out of the rock face. The helicopter that came to rescue me tried to drown myself, but ended up with a box jellyfish in my mouth, and the guy who did CPR got stung and asphyxiated. I tried explosives, exposure, electrocution. All I achieved was becoming the first person in the country to be blacklisted by emergency services. I gave up on offing myself and came up with a mission instead. I could never hold down a meaningful relationship or own a pet. Could I don't know, grow some flowers? I bought a stack of vibrant, healthy plants, watered them every day, and one by one they wilted and died. I bought some more, only watered them once. They wilted too. I tried 100 different species, but nothing lasted more than a few weeks. I read horticulture magazines and tried water, fertilizer, sunlight, shade. I read 150 Shades of Grey. I played one Bach. They all died. Meanwhile, my mail had stopped coming. They were running out of postmen. One day, something miraculous happened. There was a bud, a tiny shoot of green sticking its head through one of the hundreds of empty pots. I was overjoyed. I posted on the So You Think You Can Plant forum and told them all about it. Uploaded some photos, and FloraFan8 told me it was marijuana. Marijuana? Damn teenagers. But wait, Steve-O was a pothead, and my dad was a drug addict. Did that mean I made contact with some stoner kids from high school and started hanging out? They didn't die! Ecstasy! Well, you know what I mean. Finally, my life would be normal. I could have a very slow, perpetually hungry cat. I could fall in love. Someone who can say, "Honey, I'm home," and make me Doritos for dinner. Of course, the only thing capable of surviving around me would quite possibly land me in prison, so I bought myself a one-way ticket to Amsterdam. A great idea, but I really should have put more thought into it. No one else survived the crash. Caught the interest of someone in national security after that.
Unbreakable Sam,
He called me.
tried to kill yourself a dozen times but couldn't pull it off.
He said.
Have you ever thought about joining the army?
He asked. And that's how I came to join the Special Forces in Afghanistan, and the only regiment encouraged to get high while on duty. They call us the Flowers, a euphemism for all the bud. All I do is walk through the desert watching rifles misfiring and bombs randomly detonating in nearby caves. I've been captured 4 times now, but I always get out within a day or 2. Not everyone gets dealt a winning hand, you know. But all things considered, I can't complain. I may not be destined for happiness in this life, but at least I got to be useful. That's cool. Useful works just fine for me. I'm not dying to be happy.